Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala ma ba'd. As perhaps some of you are aware, last month I visited Japan for the first da'wah trip there, and I went to a number of communities and cities, and was a very fascinating trip. And as usual, when I go on these trips, I like to share my experiences with all of you so that we feel connected with the broader ummah, to understand that, alhamdulillah, Islam is alive and thriving and flourishing around the world, and to benefit from their experiences, and they can ours inshallah ta'ala as well. Japan, as you're all aware, is actually a very interesting country. It is an island country with a unique and fascinating culture and history. And it is a separate series of islands, and therefore it has its own civilization, its own language. It is a unique language. It's not related to any other major language in the world, and it is its own religion as well. The Japanese people are disconnected from the mainland, and they have been there for tens of thousands of years, and therefore they have developed a separate culture, ideology, identity, and even religion. And this makes it even more interesting. Japan has many unique things. Of them is that it is they are the only emperor kingdom to this day. There's no other emperor kingdom. And their emperor dynasty, it is the oldest dynasty in human history. It goes back 1,500 years, like almost to the time of the Prophet. The same family has been there for that long. And just a brief interlude here, that the religion of Japan is a very interesting religion. And I was very curious about this. So when I went there, one of the things I do is I like to hire eclectic guides, academic guides to take me. So I hired a Shinto guide. The religion is called Shintoism. The religion is called Shintoism. It is only in Japan. There's no other, this religion is only practiced in Japan. So I hired a tour guide that specializes in the Shinto religion to take me around and to introduce me to their ideology and show me their places of worship. So I spent half a day with him, and I ended up even more confused than when I began, because I'm not trying to be crude or whatnot, but Shintoism is very different religion than Abrahamic religions. And when I asked him that, is there one ultimate God? Is there one creator? The person was like, you could tell he's never been asked this type of question. They don't have the same ideology as we do. So Shintoism is a spiritual tradition, and its emphasis is not on gods. It's not on a higher power. It's about living in harmony with nature. And they have this thing called the kami, K-A-M-I, kami, and they have 8 million kamis, they say. Everywhere you go, they say, we have 8 million kamis. We translate kamis as gods, but that's not correct. This is our fundamental issue. What we view as a god, that's not what they view as kamis. For them, a kami is any type of force or even nature or even icon that deserves some type of respect. Not that it is your creator, not that it is a god. And so they have kamis of their ancestors. They have kamis of holy sites. They have kamis of anything. It's not something that for them, the notion, there is no ideology, theology. They don't have a book. There's no holy book in Shintoism. There's no concept of heaven and hell. There's no concept of day of judgment. It's just living in one and showing respect to anything that is worthy of being respected. So they might worship the stars, they might worship the heavens, they might worship an ancestor. When we say worship, they would not call it worship. They would say, this isn't worship. We are just giving due to all of these entities out there. And one of the unique things about this religion is that they don't view it as being exclusive. So the bulk of Japanese people are simultaneously practicing Shintoism and Buddhism at the same time. They don't view it as any either or. And my guy said to me that, we go to the Buddhist temple, we can worship the Buddha God there, and then we can go to our Shinto shrines and we can venerate there. There's no dichotomy for them, right? And they are so proud of their heritage civilization that it's no other religion has permeated. As you know, Christian missionaries have spent 500 years trying to spread their message around the world. So many Far Eastern countries have embraced Christianity. Look at the Philippines, which is now majority Christian. Look at so many other lands where Korea, so many Christians. But the Japanese people, all 500 years of Christianization, massive failure. Less than 1% of Japanese converted to Christianity. So you can say Japanese as a whole are still upon their own ideology, their own understanding. So this reality, of course, makes it difficult for us, as we're going to come to. Islam has not been a presence in Japan for the bulk of its history, unlike China. Islam entered China in the time of, some say the Sahaba, for sure in the time of Tabi'un. And the Tang dynasty, 1,500 years ago, built the first mosque in China. I visited that mosque. I have a video. I gave a lecture 8-9 years ago about Islam in China. China and Islam have had a relationship since the entirety of the history. The Abbasids exchanged emissaries with the Chinese emperor. But Japan is beyond. Japan is an island. Japan is disconnected. And there is no presence of Islam in Japan up until modernity. Now, some of the ancient books of ours, our medieval books, they mention a land, I kid you not, they call it Waq. This is the name they mention. They say there are islands beyond the end of the world, the islands of Waq. And they have these exotic, fanciful, descriptions. Some say this is Japan. Allahu A'lam. The first evidence I found in the actual island of Japan that we can verify is the very famous Muslim geographer Al-Mas'udi. And Al-Mas'udi wrote in the 300s Hijrah, and he has a very famous book of geography and history. It is called Muruj al-Dhahab. And Al-Mas'udi says, beyond China lies the land of Jaban. He literally says Jaban. Beyond China. This is really impressive for somebody in the 300s. This is way before, Vasco da Gama. This is way before the Portuguese. This is way before. So Al-Mas'udi, I have no idea where he got this information from, because no Muslims have been to Japan as of yet. Al-Mas'udi says, beyond China, there is a land of Jaban, and that is the end of the world. I mean, there's nothing beyond that, right? And it possesses forests and rich natural products, and its king is obeyed and respected, and its people are renowned for discipline. This is so amazing. Mas'udi is writing in the 300s, right? 1,100 years ago. And he is saying the Japanese people are renowned for discipline. And I will going to come back to this point. What an amazing society is going to come to. For bravery, for skill in war. And the Chinese people have trade routes with the Japanese people. And he goes on, and that's just one paragraph in his book. So he has very little information, but he puts it in there. Suleiman the Magnificent, after Vasco da Gama, after the Portuguese, Suleiman the Magnificent then also discovers these trade routes, and he sends an emissary, but nothing seems to come out of this. So there was no Muslim presence in Japan, 15, 16, 17, 1800. There doesn't seem to be any reference of Islam in Japan, which is very rare, by the way. Almost every other country in the world, Islam has had some interaction. In this country of ours, there were Muslims before 1776. There were people who worshipped Allah on the soil in the 1600s. We know this for a fact. And 1700. Can you imagine an island known as Japan? We don't have any record of a Muslim being there up until basically modernity. What is the first serious contact or connection? It occurs in the late Ottoman era. Late Ottoman, 1890s. This is yesterday. This is like the twinkling of an eye. 1890s, where the Ottoman Khalifa Sultan Abdul Hamid and the emperor, they send some emissaries, and they want to form some contact here. And this leads to a very interesting anecdote in our history, and that is that the Japanese, for a period of time, were very interested in the Muslim world to be allies with. Against whom? 1900s. Against whom? 19? Against this land here. Remember World War II, you know what happened, Hiroshima. Remember? So Japan was seeking to create allies. And against all of the superpowers, this including this one. And so this is the point in time where they start sending delegations, where a large Ottoman ship was sent to basically exchange ambassadors and emissaries. Unfortunately, that ship sunk off the coast of Japan. So there's still a memorial marking the death of so many people. The Japanese built a memorial to honor that these people came, and then on the way back this tragedy happened. So to this day there is that memorial over there. And interestingly enough as well, this is a really bizarre episode in our American Islamic history. You've all heard of the Nation of Islam. I've spoken about this, Elijah Muhammad, and the weird beliefs that they have and whatnot. The Japanese had direct contacts with Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam. In fact, the Nation of Islam would have propaganda that was pro-Japanese pre-World War II. Elijah Muhammad was jailed by the FBI with the accusation that you are on the payroll of Japan. I'm not making this up, you can look this up. And in fact, we now know there's an element of truth, that he did get funding from Japan. It sounds weird, but this is the reality. The Aqidah of the Nation of Islam has in it praise of Japan. That's their theology. And a part of their theology, this is 1930s, 1940s. They believe that the Japanese are building a spaceship that is going to save the African American race. And so whoever believes in Elijah Muhammad will be uploaded, upgraded onto that Japanese spaceship. So there's propaganda that Japan is in our favor. And we actually have pictures of Japanese agents talking with Elijah Muhammad and, interacting with him, supporting him. So they wanted to do this, and they would have propaganda to the American troops that they should convert to the nation. Why are you fighting for a group that doesn't even treat you as humans? You should not be this group. You should join other groups. And one of the propaganda, they actually were giving da'wah. In their eyes, it's the Nation of Islam, but they don't know the difference. They're just saying, you guys should become, Muslims. And by that, they meant the Nation of Islam. The Japanese are doing this, right? There's also a little bit of interesting back and forth in the 1910s, 1920s. The Emperor Meiji, he had a conference in which he invited delegations from all of the major religions. And the goal of the conference was, which religion should Japan adopt? And so shuyukh from Al-Azhar came, scholars came, and they presented the evidence that you should all become Muslim. Now, how do you interpret this? You can be open-minded and say the emperor really was thinking about adopting another religion, and maybe he would have been Muslim, and if he did, then the whole country would be Muslim. And you can be cynical, and you can say that this is a political move where he's just trying to reach out to the non-Christian organizations and say to them that, we are sympathetic to you. However you want to interpret it, but this did happen. The emperor did invite shuyukh, and this is one of the first encounters of scholars from Al-Azhar coming and presenting Islam, talking about Islam. One of the people that went, he wrote a journey, my rihla ila Yaban, my journey to Japan. You'll find it online. And he talks about his stay there, and in fact, his host converted to Islam. So this is one of the first converts that we have, that his host was so impressed, he actually converted to Islam. This is around 1905 or something of this nature. The first masjid that was built in Japan was built by Indian traders. Trade had begun, and Indian merchants, Gujarati merchants, where the Gujaratis, mashallah, represent, okay? The Gujarati merchants, mashallah, they would go and they would buy and sell, but they didn't plan to live in Japan. But when they were there, they needed a masjid to pray. And the port that they were in is the port of the city of Kobe. You all know Kobe, who are meat experts, because Kobe beef, the Kobe Wagyu beef, this is the highest quality of beef in the world. This is Kobe. I actually went to Kobe, not for the beef, I had the beef there too. I went to visit this masjid. Inshallah, video footage will be shown later on, inshallah, on my channel. I took a video of this masjid. This is a masjid that is still standing in its original structure, 1935, 90 years ago. It is the original masjid. The local Japanese call it Miracle Mosque. Why? This is their name, not ours. Why? Because two things destroyed Kobe to the ground, but the masjid remained intact. And there's footage, when my video is uploaded, you will see that footage there. There's actual photographs of the entire city leveled to the ground, but the masjid is standing untouched. Two things happen. Number one, the American bombing, World War II, and the effects of Hiroshima and the American bombers coming and flattening. They didn't target Kobe directly, but they're targeting, Hiroshima is just less than a half an hour away by train, so they're targeting these places, and the city of Kobe was flattened. Some pockets, and the masjid is one of those, like literally everything around it is gone, the masjid remains. In 1995, if you remember, there was one of the large earthquakes that happens, so tsunamis happens in Japan and earthquakes, and tens of thousands of people lost their lives, and the city was demolished. But once again, even though this mosque is a stone's throw away from the port, I visited it, you can see the port, it's just a few, because the people who would pray there were the merchants who lived next to the port. So the masjid is walking distance from the port. And subhanAllah, there were people in that mosque who told me that they were in the earthquake of 1995. They were in the city. I met 3 people who were, a little bit, they were now in their 50s. They were like teenagers. Their parents had come there. So they told me that the whole Muslim community lost their houses. They came to live in the masjid. And in fact, the masjid even opened its doors for other people to come because the masjid remained intact and everything else was destroyed. So that's why even the locals, they call it the miracle mosque. This is the first mosque, and you can Google it, Mosque of Kobe. You will find beautiful, and it's built in, Indian style, because these are like the Indian merchants. And one of the largest communities that used to be there, but is no longer there, is the Tatar community. The Tatars, we'll talk about them another day. They're a very interesting ethnic group of Muslims. In the 1920s and 30s, persecution began. The communists came. The Muslim identity was being erased. So the Tatars fled around the world. Large groups came to Japan. This is the first group of Muslims who settled in Japan. The Indian merchants were not planning to settle, and from what I asked around, none of them remained. When World War II happened, the Indians went back, and they never returned because the laws changed after that. So this is British India. So they came on British passports. And after World War II, they didn't come back. Who remained? The Tatar Muslims. There were a few thousand Tatar Muslims. And that was a one-off migration. When I visited Kobe, they told me that the last remaining Tatar had passed away a few years ago at the age of 90-something. And, their children and grandchildren, most of them have left Japan and gone to other places. But one person was there until just a few years ago. So this is the first group of Muslims to come to Japan. These are Tatars, and then the Indian Muslims. The same batch, the same group of people, the same time frame, they also built the first mosque in Tokyo. And this was built in 1938. So 35 is the Kobe one, 38 is the Tokyo Jami' Masjid, which remains the largest, visible masjid. Around 20 years ago, the Turkish government redid it. So it is now a beautiful masjid, like a mini Suleymaniya. You know how the Turkish government rebuilds it. So it is now, you can say, the iconic masjid of the whole country, even though it's old in terms of location, 1938, but the building structure is 20 years old. And it's a very beautiful Turkish-style masjid. I visited a number of cities. I went to Tokyo, I went to Osaka, I went to Kobe, I went to Fukuoka, which is the furthest city on the island. So I went the whole island and then went back to Tokyo. And in summary, Japan has a population of 125 million. Of them, Muslims are around 150,000, which is 0.27%. 0.27. In my da'wah trips, I have never visited a land with smaller percentage of Muslims. There have no European land that I'm aware of, no Western land that I'm aware of, no African country that I'm aware of, no obviously Middle Eastern country that I'm aware of, no Asian country that I'm aware of. I have not visited any land in which the percentage of Muslims is even close to being this small, 0.27%. So Muslims are rare, rarer than rare. They are few and far between. And yet, mashallah, tabarakallah, their activities, their vibrancy, the number of masjid and musallas is absolutely phenomenal. Of this number, roughly 10 to 15% of those Muslims are native Japanese converts. This is amazing because that number, that percentage is unheard of anywhere else in the world other than America, where we have, mashallah, 30% of our American community is African American brothers. Other than America, I'm not aware of any other country where the percentage of converts in that high. 10 to 15% of the Muslims of Japan are indigenous Muslims. And I have interacted with graduates of Al-Azhar, graduates of Medina, graduates of Syrian universities, all of them born and raised in Japan. The Imam of Kobe Masjid, was born and raised in Kobe. He accepted Islam 15 years ago in Kobe Masjid. And he wanted to learn Arabic. He went to study Islam in Medina. And then he came back as a graduate. And now he is the Imam of the same masjid that he used to live close by. And he is the Imam of that masjid, alhamdulillah, local Japanese convert. The first person who translated the Quran is a graduate of Azhar University. Back in the 70s, he went there. And then now he is, mashallah, I think in his late 60s, early 70s now himself. He's an old man now. And, I met him as well, alhamdulillah, speaking fluent Arabic. Absolute, perfect Arabic. Japanese person speaking fluent Arabic. And he translated the Quran that, you can find it in the, the King Fahd, the printing complex, that one there. So you meet all of these people. And subhanAllah, I had a lecture there in Tokyo University. 350 people came to hear about Islam, and a lot of them were never heard of Islam. They're hearing for the first time, and also many of the converts of the previous 10, 15 years. So we had, mashallah, a very large crowd, one of the largest crowds for them. They were very happy at this. For us, 350 is not even Fajr Salah, is triple the number, right? But for them to have 350, they were so happy. They just put an advertisement that there's going to be a talk on Islam in the University of Tokyo, and it was packed. The whole auditorium was packed that they had, and they were very happy that that number had come. Lots of questions about Islam. Now, who exactly are the Muslims? I said 10 to 15% are the indigenous converts. How about the rest of them? So the Tatarian Muslims, by and large, are no longer there. What has happened was that in the 80s and 90s, they opened up the door for students to come, just like across the world. And large groups of students came to Japan, most of them from the Middle East and Pakistan. So Pakistanis, a lot of them came to Japan, and majority of them returned back, but a good amount remained. To remain there is not easy because they are open for you to remain there, but you have to know the language. And if you do not know the language, then it is very difficult to work over there because they are not learning English as a whole. Why should they? I mean, let's be honest here. Why should we expect them to learn another language, right? So some people decided to stay there, and they remained. Many of them married over there. Their wives converted and they married, and then they to obtain citizenship as well. It's a long process, but it is possible to do. So tens of thousands of people went to study, and a few thousand of them, they remained. And these are now the people that are mainly in charge of da'wah activities, along with our Japanese brothers and sisters who converted. And roughly, there are around 130 mosques in Japan. And what I found interesting is that because space is so limited in Japan, especially in Tokyo, I have never seen masajid like this, where we went to, Tokyo is just whole bunches of high rises, right? It's a very packed space. And so the masjid was just like a mini 4 or 5 story building that is like 2 rooms. Like from here to the end, that's the size of the building, and it just goes up. And you enter in, and in each floor is the space for like 20, 25 people. That's it. So for Jumu'ah, 4 floors fill up, connected by audio video, but they don't have space. So just the imam and is in the downstairs, second floor another, third floor another. The sisters have an elevator going to the top. Just small little rooms. That's how most of the musallas are. And in the last 10 years, Tokyo and Japan have wanted to open their doors to halal tourism. And so they are making lots of efforts to have halal food and to have small musallas, even at the train station. Not that there's thousands of Muslims in Tokyo, no. I mean, it's the musallas, it's not as if they're turning the Tokyo people away. They're intended for tourists. They're intended for people they want to attract tourists to come. So it's not that difficult to find a small musalla. Small area, you will find it to pray over there. And of course, you have the large Tokyo Jami' over there. Another interesting aspect is that Japan has realized that there's a big industry for halal food. I didn't have any problem eating halal. Even in Fukuoka, small little town over there is halal over there. Because they know this is an industry. And so if you just find out, you get halal wagyu, mashallah. I had so much wagyu in my entire, for those who know, mashallah. And then obviously beef and all of this, like they really value. They want to make sure that the tourists are taken care of. And so no problems eating halal over there. And in terms of da'wah and Islamic schools, I visited a number of Islamic schools. Tokyo has a full-time Islamic school for the kids. And then Kobe, the same Kobe place, has an entire Islamic school. So I spoke to the students there. Again, it's surreal. These are children. Many of them are mixed, like their mothers are Japanese and their fathers are, and they're like fully, thoroughly integrated. They speak fluent Japanese, fluent English, because most schools don't teach English. So the Islamic schools also teach English. And fluent Arabic. They are trilingual. The children are being taught all three languages. This is not something, even we don't do that. And they are doing that. And obviously, one thing about Japan, I have never seen a society that is more clean than Japan. And everybody says this, I saw it with my own eyes. In fact, the difficulty, they don't even have trash cans in public. And I said, I told to my guy, what do we do? He said, no, so you keep your trash in your own backpack on your own until you get home. Like they don't even want you to throw the trash anywhere. There is no public trash can in Tokyo. At least I didn't see any. And my guide said, this is well known. You just put it in your own pocket or you carry your own bag and you throw your own trash. You learn responsibility over there. Clean streets, punctual time. The people have utmost respect over there. And I know it's awkward, it is a masjid, but something needs to be said here. What will make you understand their toilets? The cleanliness and the technology. I can go on and on. I fell in love with that technology. It's like 7th grade, you just like, there's a whole computer panel. Like everything. I don't know how much detail you want to go into here, but it's everything taken care of. You have birds chirping in the background. You don't even have to touch anything. There's a computer screen. And obviously, they're very hygienic people, right? And so everything is taken care of from beginning to end, mashallah. Even there's air conditioning inside the toilet, believe me. Unbelievable. Like this they have, and they want to be clean. So they have this notion. So one thing that a lot of people say, and now I see this myself, the people of Japan in terms of their akhlaq, in terms of their respect for elders, in terms of their personal hygiene, subhanAllah, they are the closest I've seen to Islam. But their theology is so different. This is our main issue. They don't understand the notion of exclusive religion. They don't understand La ilaha illallah. It's difficult for them to understand. Like, why do you want to restrict? There's plenty of things to worship. There's plenty of things to venerate. So this is why the Japanese converts that I met that have studied, that they're doing amazing work. They have so many videos explaining Islam, but the traction is slow. It's there, but it's slow, because for them, they wouldn't mind you worshiping your God, they're worshiping their God. There's no exclude. Why are you being selfish? Everybody should worship. They don't have a problem. There's Islamophobia is very little over there, almost non-existent. But they're so open-minded that they're like, why should we restrict ourselves? You do you, we do us, and it's all good. That's their attitude there. So this is one of the issues that they are facing here. Unfortunately, there's one thing that needs to be mentioned, that the negative has begun. The far-right trend in the world, the whole world is now far-right. SubhanAllah, even Japan has been touched. just a little bit. What was the issue that they sparked? Some far-right politician, a decade ago, they just began this. Now it's become bigger and bigger and bigger. It's not about the hijab. It's not about, the biha. It is about, believe it or not, cemeteries, burying the dead. Something we don't even think twice about. Why is this an issue? So they began spreading this false thing. So firstly, in their own culture, so 99% of Japanese are Shinto and Confucius, we mentioned, right? Sorry, Shinto and Buddhist, right? In their culture, they cremate the body. Graveyards are only done by the Christian and the Muslim. And even many Christian Japanese, because of their attitude, they don't mind cremating. You know how they are in terms of they don't really have Sharia. So it's not a big deal for them that even many Christians are not fighting this issue. So even many Christian Japanese don't mind cremating. So somebody began preaching something really bizarre. It goes against common sense and science, but it began spreading that, number one, a dead body in the soil is against harmony of nature. And number two, that when the body decomposes, then it is going to spread bad germs or chemicals. Like they're not accustomed to bodies in the ground. So there is this fear of bodies being placed in the ground. And it has become, and I know it sounds bizarre, last week or 3 days ago, the parliament debated this issue. That's how serious it has become. The Japanese parliament debated this issue. Sadly, they passed a resolution that no more graveyards are going to be allowed. This is result of the far-right propaganda around the world, where a little bit is now getting over there as well. They are now, so what's going to happen now is that the existing graveyards can continue, but no new graveyards as of yet. And this is a massive problem. It's a massive problem, and the Muslims are struggling with this problem because you understand, people die, what are you going to do? And they don't have an actual solution yet. Allah make it easy for them. But this is the only, I would say, what I noticed of the negative issue. But overall, like I said, the whole environment. Let me give you an anecdote. When I was in Kobe, so I visited the Islamic school over there. And the principal is he was an Egyptian, Japanese person, like Egyptian, but now he's Japanese. The principal told me an interesting story that a new Muslim family had come to Kobe. Kobe is a relatively smaller town compared to Tokyo. And they didn't know the etiquettes and cultures. So their children were walking from the Islamic school back home, and an elderly Japanese person passed by. And they didn't do anything. It's a stranger. They just walked back home. That elderly person went to the principal and complained that, what are you teaching your students? They passed by me and they didn't even greet me with the greetings of respect, and I'm an old man. He complained that, what are you teaching? You're not appropriate for a child to walk back an elderly and not greet him properly. And so the principal had to apologize and went to the family and say, please listen, next time, you have to teach your kids this. That's their culture there, that if a child, a young man walks by, there's an etiquette and you greet the elder person. But that's how much their culture is of respect to the elders, that he took a serious insult. How dare a child walks by and doesn't give me the greetings of respect? He complained, and then that was rectified. This is a really interesting culture over there. But to conclude, for me, the most impressive thing was to find small groups of diverse people. Can you imagine, Pakistani Japanese, Egyptian Japanese, people and different socioeconomic. You have professors, you have engineers, doctors, you have manual laborers. All of them, the only thing that combines them in the mosque is what? Islam, right? And few people, but dedicated work and giving da'wah and having, booths and stalls. And it reminded me of this country 50 years ago, and even my father's efforts back in the 70s. It reminded me of fertile ground. And I said to them, and this was ironic, subhanAllah, my father passed away a few days ago. I told them the story of my father. I said, literally, what you are doing now, it reminds me of what my father's generation did in the 70s, where people come together and they have no idea that just a few people will change the whole landscape. And their sincerity and ikhlas, spending of their own money. No government helps them. And no government is supporting them. Just diverse people coming together and doing what they can to build masajid, Islamic schools, publishing pamphlets, printing Qur'ans, holding, public da'wah festivals and stalls, all of it fi sabilillah. And small scale. We are used to look big masjid. We used to big crowd. And when 350 people came, they were in shock and awe. And for me, this is a small audience, 350. But they said, we've never had a public lecture. This many people came. And good questions, deep questions. And some people were interested in Islam. Inshallah, I hope they have converted after that. This reality of pure da'wah and fertile ground, I told them, I am optimistic, insha'Allah ta'ala, that your sincerity will, insha'Allah ta'ala, pay its dividends, halal dividends soon. And all that is needed is a catalyst. I say to you, the people in Japan, by and large, they are good-hearted. They're pure. They are decent. They have good manners. They have good akhlaq. They're so close. Just the theology has a bit of a, you have to mix somehow to figure out how to do that. But once that happens, subhanAllah, I think it is just fertile ground for the people to embrace Islam, and I'm optimistic for them. And I hope, inshaAllah ta'ala, that Allah continues to carry the torch of Islam through them. And with this, Jazakumullah khair, and we'll continue another lecture next week. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Inna Allah wa malaikatahu yusalluna ala nabi.